when I took art history, I was able to tie my love for writing and literature and research into my love for like the visual arts and art in general, because I was not gifted with the talent of being an artist. I have tried many a time in my life to do painting, drawing, charcoal, sculpture. I've tried it all. It's fun. I like it. It's cute what I produce. I never was gonna have a future as an artist. But I've always had this artistic environment around me.
Welcome to Inspired By, a podcast all about creative life and where we interview people about their creative inspirations and what inspires them every day and what they do in their creative lives. I am your host, Marissa Davis, and I am joined by co-host Jennifer Nelson.
Hello.
So we have talked on this podcast to a lot of different artists and people in creative fields. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of take a jump to the other end of the spectrum and talk to a curator. So today we are excited to talk with Madeline Beck. She is an art curator at the Marietta Cobb Museum of Art, and she has a lot of insights about the art world and art in general, and a really interesting story. So I'm happy to introduce you guys to her today.
Yeah, I can't wait to talk to her. But before we get to that, we start every episode with a creative brief, and we're joined by a couple of members of our Clementine creative team who bring a surprise topic of conversation for us. So today we're joined with Isabella and Katie. Hi, guys.
Hello.
What did you bring for us today?
Okay, so we have two different campaigns that launched recently that we want to talk to you guys about and get your opinion. Both sparked a little bit of controversy as they were similar to each other. They were about jeans, denim jeans. So we had two different denim jeans. One was Gap's and one was American Eagle's. Gap's featured the girl band Cat's Eye, and American Eagle's featured Sydney Sweeney, an American actor. And while both of these campaigns were about jeans, one of them exemplified diversity and fun and femininity in ways, and the other one also exemplified femininity, I guess, but not exactly in the way that they wanted it to land with their audience. So as we know, denim usually doesn't make headlines, but this campaign, Gap's was just seemed to be more inclusive, and their line was Better in Denim campaign featuring Cat's Eye. And they pulled in a ton of views because this girl group has a diversity of women. They have Asian women, they have white women, they just have a bunch of different people in their band that make up who they are. So a lot of people really liked that because it obviously like spoke to lots of different audiences. They were speaking to women's jeans, so that was the whole thing behind that. And then American Eagle brought in Sydney Sweeney and got attention for the opposite reason. Their tagline was, "You have good jeans," or "Sydney Sweeney has good jeans."
Right.
Which, indeed, yes, she's a beautiful woman, but that's not exactly the target audience that seemed to really be landing with jean selling, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So their target audience wasn't really met, which their target audience is more like ages 15 to late 20s, early 30s, and women, not men.
Right.
So it was just very interesting. So we just wanted to bring it to the table and get y'all's opinion on it.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't American Eagle come out afterwards and be like, oh, here's all these other people in our jeans with great jeans, and this was what we planned from the beginning?
I didn't see as much of that. I'm not sure if that... Maybe they did.
They may have pulled the plug.
I saw them come out with a few things. Well, no, they like released another piece and basically saying like, this was a series and we made all of this 6 months ago and this is what it was supposed to be all along. I think trying to mitigate some of the feedback that they got, but it didn't seem like, obviously, it didn't seem like it really broke through or like it was too far gone by that point. There was no coming back from it.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's a really interesting issue because to me, it's, when you talk about creative marketing, I think a lot of creative marketing used to be about being very sort of traditionally aspirational, I guess, and kind of making a splash or doing something a little bit, that would just create attention. Whereas now I feel like there's a much larger focus on people wanting to see themselves reflected in that.
Yeah, I think, when I think about the campaign, I think about the old adage that sex sells.
Right.
And no matter what product it is that you're trying to sell, if you make it look sexy, people are going to buy it.
Right.
People are going to buy into it. It's provocative. It's certainly engages conversation and discussion. So I think from that perspective, it's done something. I don't know that it landed in the way that they want. Clearly, it didn't land in the way that they wanted it to. But I also think, like you said, to your point, in today's day and age, that old adage of sex sells doesn't work as well or doesn't work in the same way. And so marketers and brands have to be really cognizant of that theme and concept, and that maybe it's not going to land the way that you want it to.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like particularly with a younger audience, target there, that I feel like a younger audience in particular kind of holds brands to a higher standard in terms of, what are you really telling us with this, right? Like we all know you sell jeans, but what's really the underlying message or the underlying reflection of the values? And I think that's something that wasn't as big of a conversation even 20 years ago, or certainly before that. So I think it's kind of an interesting example of that.
For sure. I feel like Gap did a great job of, like, Gap has been around forever. They cater to kids, to women, to men, to everybody in between. And I feel like them using Cat's Eye as, like, for this campaign was a genius choice on their part, because Cat's Eye is this up and coming K-pop all-woman group, like Isabella mentioned, and women from all different backgrounds, races, communities, and everything. And I feel like that group really fit well with Gap's brand. And I think, like, for American Eagle, they try to use Sydney Sweeney because she's an up-and-coming, like, not even a singer. She's an actor. She's doing this. She's doing that. So I feel like they were trying to do what they thought their audience would like, but the way they did it was just something that nobody liked. And I feel like the way they portrayed it could have been completely differently, and it could have landed a lot better. But I just think it was a mistake that they're learning from.
Yes, I hope they're learning from
Hopefully.
It is interesting, though. It's two brands that are both kind of Americana in different ways. And I feel like you have one campaign that maybe went to what the older, more traditional version of that in an advertising world is. And then you have another campaign that sort of embraced what a modern definition of Americana looks like.
For sure. All encompassing. And
Yeah.
I like the new Gap commercial. I think it's really cute.
It is.
It's really cute.
With the dancing.
Yeah.
It's so cute.
And I like all the little styles that they're wearing and everything. So I like it. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Something I saw on TikTok, when this sparked like 1-2 months ago, like it's been a couple months since this was like right in the headlines, but when it was like first sparking, I saw this TikTok, and it was this girl who works in marketing, and she was like breaking it down in like a chart format. So of course I sat there and watched it because I'm like, I want to know what you think about this. And she's like, do you know how many people that had to get through to be approved, and how many meetings, and how long ago they started these meetings? And like, that had to start like Q3 of last year. Like, so it's just interesting to think about, like, that concept had to go through so many people without thinking.
Yeah, without anyone raising that or anyone taking it seriously.
Right.
It's funny because I think that about a lot of ads that get out there. Sometimes I think like, how many meetings and how many presentations, and this is where we land.
Well, it makes you wonder too, like, is that because nobody wanted to take a stand for what they really believed in?
It's true.
And they just sat back and watched because so-and-so said that they really liked it? Right. Or is that, that they all just really liked it and thought it was a great idea and let's go for it?
Or was their feedback that they didn't listen to?
Yeah. True.
Yeah. I guess it also depends on who their leadership is. Like you were saying, like if they don't feel comfortable speaking up. So that has internal different things to be discussed. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
And like on the money side of it all, like how much do you think they paid Sydney Sweeney to be in this ad? Like
not a small amount.
Not a small amount. So it's like, are you really going to be that one person who's going to like get all of this tanked because of you don't want to stand up and say what you really think?
Yeah.
money, business, all of that fun stuff.
Also, no offense to Sydney Sweeney, because I think she is
For sure.
a very talented actress, and you know, she was caught up
nothing against
in a
her,
brand and a product. So I hope that she's not getting the same kind of heat that the ad agency is getting for this, because she's just a person.
Yeah.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
Well, that is an interesting one. And I think it's a really good example of, how creative is that it really is an emotional issue. Even in an advertising and marketing world, it becomes really about what resonates with people on a personal level.
Mm-hmm.
So
Sure.
that's really cool. Well, thanks for bringing that to the table today.
Thank y'all for having us.
It looks like our guest, Madeline, has arrived. So give us just a minute to get her mic'd up and we will be right back.
Welcome back to Inspired By. Today's guest is a curator here in the vibrant art city of Atlanta. We are joined today by Madeline Beck. She is curator for Marietta Cobb Museum of Art. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
We're excited to have you on. Normally we have talked to a lot of artists and people in the art industry. And so we wanted to kind of get the not really opposing, but a different viewpoint from someone who is a spectator as her career. So excited to have you on to give us kind of a curatorial perspective on art.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. I feel nice and at home here at Clementine Creative, and I'm just so thankful for the opportunity. I'm the curator at the Marietta Cobb Museum of Art. This is a fine art museum in Marietta Square. So just took me a 5-minute walk from the museum over here, and feels so good to just talk about the arts and what I do and share it with y'all's community. Yeah. So overall, as a curator, just to keep it nice, short, and sweet, I'm responsible for seeking out the artists and the exhibitions for the schedule for each year of the exhibitions that we host at the museum. We have 7 exhibitions a year, so my responsibility is going out into the community, connecting with artists, forging these relationships, discussing and presenting exhibition opportunities to my board and my higher ups, and then ultimately presenting a final exhibition. So all the minutia paperwork aside, it's a lot of it. A lot of people think it's all fun and games being a curator, but a lot of it is just paperwork, deadlines, contracts.
That's a lot of everything.
Yeah, it is.
It comes down to it, right?
People think, no matter what it is, people think it's just all, easy, fun. And then a lot of it's just paperwork, calendar work, scheduling. And that's been a lot of it. But you guys have kind of caught me right now at a point where I am mounting an exhibition. So I am in the midst of putting artwork on the walls and dealing with all of the highs and lows of actually bringing an exhibition to fruition. So I kind of do all of that. We're a small team, so I do everything from the coordinating and the scheduling and the paperwork all the way to actually screwing the holes in the wall, hanging the pieces, creating the wall labels, and just doing pretty much everything in between, with the help of course, a lot of great interns and staff.
So talk a little bit about what that's like. You said that you're in the midst of mounting an exhibition. So how does that work from your brain and vantage point and everything that you've learned over the years? How do you approach that? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Like, talk about that. It really is a creative process for you, I'd assume.
It is. And I do like to approach it very collaboratively. A lot of curators like to take it from the artist and have their plan laid out in stone, and they like to move forward with that. I like to work with the artist a little bit more and have a little bit more of like a conversation with the artist, a bit more of a conversation of, what do you want to focus on? What do you want to highlight? when I have these two great pieces, do you have a preference on whether that one is on this wall when you first walk in or on another? I'm really open to all of that. When artists don't have those specific preferences, a lot of it does just come down to getting the work in the space, because you can try to plan it out as much as you want ahead of time, but with framing, spatial concerns, like architectural concerns from like vents and waves in the wall and the floor, all these weird.
What do you mean? In historic Marietta, we have waves in the wall?
I know.
A 100 and something year old building isn't like perfect. Like, what? So I could try to plan all day, and I have to have the artwork in the building. And so when I have it in the building, I can then start to place it a little bit more curatorially within the space. Of course, I love the artist input when I have it. Some artists, though, aren't local, or whatever abilities they have, they're not able to come and be a part of the install. So I like to get as much of that from them as I can. But once they drop it off with me, the rest just kind of is on me. And I do just have to go off of the spatial concerns like we talked about, and then just matching themes and styles together, framing together. Even sometimes you could have two pieces that look great together and the frames just do not.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to kind of keep that in mind. But I just, in a nutshell, I always like to come at it from a place where I'm collaborating with the artist.
Yeah.
And I'm making it what they want it to be, within reason.
Sure.
Of course. There's always that element where it's like, no, I'm the curator.
At the end of the day, you make the final decision, right?
Exactly. And a lot of artists most artists are really good at understanding that boundary just intuitively, and they respect it beautifully. And then some shows are a little bit more involved from an installation standpoint. I need a little bit more, or yearn for a little bit more help. Whereas there's other shows where I'm like, thank you, you gave me the art, get out of here. And I will see you in 2.5 weeks when the show opens. So it is kind of organic in that element of I have to kind of just go with what the show is, what the artwork is, what the installation elements are, just kind of go from there.
Is there a specific experience that you're trying to allow for when your viewers come in to see a show, or is there a specific story that you're trying to weave them through?
You're stealing my words.
Oh, sorry.
No, like that's exactly what I was going to ask, though, because I know like this is a very familiar world for you. It's not as much for me, and that's I wonder, like, are you trying to evoke a certain experience, or focus on what the artist wants to focus on, or tell a story, or does it depend on what the art is, I suppose?
Yeah, it depends on what the story is and what the artwork is and how involved is the artist in that storytelling. Because some artists, they just say, here's an example of 25 pieces of mine from the past 4 years. Collate it and put it together how you like, which is great for me. That's a really great experience to get to come in and make it what I want it and tell the story the way I want to tell it and take a big body and kind of find those themes myself and tease that out myself. Other shows, like the show I'm working on right now for Craig Drennan, he's a lot more finite. He's a lot more focused on a very specific body of work. So with a show like that, I do want to tell more of the story and the trajectory that he's telling. Because ultimately my goal, to somewhat I think answer your question, is my goal is to communicate whatever the artist is trying to say. And to them, that means a lot of different things. For some of them, that means just a vast retrospective and you just cover everything. And some of them have a very specific 2008 to 2020 timeline they're trying to focus on. So it does depend. And at this point, I've worked on almost 50 exhibitions at the Marietta Cobb Museum of Art. So it does, like, trying to answer it generally, I can't quite do so because I've done everything from solo exhibitions like this that are very curated, very specific. Yes, very like honed in. And then others, even at the same time, while I have Craig Drennan downstairs, who's very focused right now, upstairs is Ahmad Hassan Taylor, who this is his first museum exhibition ever.
Oh, wow.
And he's kind of entrusting to me to just kind of do whatever I see fit and whatever I want. So there's a lot more freedom there because there's not this like history of institutional experience and expectations that are kind of conditioning Craig's view of his exhibition. With Ahmad, I have a little bit more freedom. And that's just a microcosm of what I do 4 times a year. Well, since 2017 when I started. So it does run the gamut with juried shows, solo shows, group shows, and everything in between.
So you called it freedom to have just kind of free reign. Do you feel like that side is freedom and the other side is pressure, or is there, does it go both ways?
That's a really good question, Marissa, because as you said that, I was like, oof, am I wording it in a way where it sounds like there is more pressure, which there is. Yeah, let me be honest. I'm a certified people pleaser and sugarcoater. So yeah, let me just call it what it is. I do feel pressure. It is pressure.
Yeah.
When there is an artist with a vision and they have decades at this point of work and planning that are going into it. And it is me and my tiny team, and there is this sense of pressure and expectation. And I've done this at the Guggenheim, and I've done this at Mocha GA, and now what are you doing? And if any shortcomings fall, I don't feel like it just reflects on me. It reflects on the institution, which then I feel reflects on the artist in their world. And so it is a lot of pressure. It is. And even, with Ahmad, with Upstairs, having, relinquishing a little bit of that pressure, there is almost a different pressure.
Exactly.
Right.
Because it's the first, the stakes are so high, is that this is this artist's first time. This is their debut. You're their introduction into this world. And if you come at it, haphazardly, lackadaisically, whatever you want to call it, I don't want that to condition how they look at art experiences moving forward.
Right.
Selfishly, I don't want it to reflect poorly on the museum or on myself. So it is a lot. It's a lot of pressure for sure. I mean, especially right now, you guys got me at a time where I'm not going to lie. I'm a little rough
Frazzled.
edges. I'm a little frazzled. But it's kind of good. You kind of got me at a time where I'm realer than if I'm just floating in the middle of shows and everything's up and we're not in the middle of Chalk Fest and I'm just sitting pretty. This is going to be, I think, a little bit more meaty.
Yay. I love it. We want the meaty Maddie. So let's talk about kind of your background before you became a curator. What brought you into this world? What made you kind of fall in love with this career? And what does it take really to be a good curator?
Yes, thank you. Take me back home. Remind me why I love all of this, because I love it all so much. And when you get bogged down into all of this nitty gritty, you need a little bit of a reminder of, why did I fall in love with this? What am I doing here? So to answer your question, I started studying art history when I was in high school. I took an AP art history class, just kind of out
That's
of the
got to be
blue.
intense in AP.
It was.
high school.
It was the first AP art history class that had ever been offered at my school. So I was one of 3 students.
Guinea pig.
Yep, total guinea pigs. Yep. And I there were 3 of us, so it wasn't hard to be the standout student, but I kind of ended up being the standout student in that. And that gave me the confidence that I might have a future in this. This gave me something to feel I could pour myself into and had a valid chance at, because as I was graduating high school, I didn't fall into math, science, English, language arts. Like, I felt like there was nothing for me outside of become a doctor, become a lawyer, go get a business degree, go get a psychology degree, like kind of just the basic undergrad that people were doing. And so I took this undergrad or this AP art history class, and I started writing about art history and writing about the arts, and it kind of fed into my love for English literature that I had developed around the same time. And I thought I was actually going to become an English teacher for a while because I loved literature. I found the writing and the rhetoric of literature analysis just fed this part of me I loved so much. And then when I took art history, I was able to tie my love for writing and literature and research into my love for like the visual arts and art in general, because I was not gifted with the talent of being an artist. I have tried many a time in my life to do painting, drawing, charcoal, sculpture. I've tried it all. It's fun. I like it. It's cute what I produce. I never was gonna have a future as an artist. But I've always had this artistic environment around me. So my mom is a jewelry artist. And my dad started as a music major, shifted into software development, and then as like a hobby got really proficient in ceramics and throwing on the wheel right around when I was getting into art history and getting into like my formative years in high school. So all of that to say, the kind of combination of growing up with a very artistic family, growing up in a town that didn't have a very great artistic scene, but downtown, I probably skipped ahead too much. I was gonna say, I didn't mention that I grew up in Augusta. I grew up in Augusta, Georgia. So not a booming artistic scene, but one that was, was and is growing. There's Westaboo down there, and they're doing some amazing things, but especially 10 years ago it was a little smaller, but I was a teenager and just stomping up and down Broad Street and just keeping active with the art scene there. So my parents, their artisticness, just kind of my social teenage scene being in kind of an artistic hub of my small town, and then my AP art history classes kind of all conditioned me to when I was seeking a college experience. My husband had just started at Kennesaw State University. He graduated the year before me, and he was studying theater and performance studies at Kennesaw State. And so that was such an easy transition as I was just visiting him my last year of high school. Just getting to see the artwork that was up at the Zuckerman Museum and checking out the program, checking out the campus. I just got really familiar with Kennesaw State. Homegirl didn't have a lot of money, so Kennesaw State was very affordable. So ultimately, I ended up just putting all my attention and efforts into just getting out of Augusta, getting up to Kennesaw, to a school where I knew I had community. I knew I already had some beginning little footprints made. And I could afford it. I just, I could afford it. I loved the school. I felt comfortable. And so that was basically it. I got through my AP exams in art history with really high marks. And so I was fortunate enough to my freshman year just dive into upper level art history classes. So my first ever class at KSU was a 3,000 level ancient Egyptian art history. That's my first ever day of school. So I got to just throw myself into it, and then I just honestly kept that train going, and I just worked at the Zuckerman Museum of Art, and I took summer classes, and I just wanted to get
full steam ahead.
Exactly. Just go full steam ahead, get that degree, get working, and just start I was impatient. Now I'm a little bit more patient, but back then I was a little bit more like, I needed a plan. Because my anxiety is about needing to have a plan and having a trajectory. So once I even just had that set in place, I felt like I had a goal in mind and I was going to get there. Once I graduated, that was a different story. And that was a whole reset on the clock, but
I mean, that's a different story for most people.
there.
Yeah. So you've had, obviously, it sounds like you're very infused in a lot of different, like surrounded by a lot of different artistic types, which is really cool and probably definitely benefits what you do every day. And based on all of your background and all of these art history classes and everything that you know, what's your favorite genre of art or period?
Ooh, specifically visual art, favorite genre?
Sure, yeah.
Ooh, I was even thinking about this morning. I had a feeling I was going to be asked this. And I was like, Maddie, if you were asked, who's your favorite artist, what would you say? And I got distracted and didn't even answer my own question. So I studied classical. That's where I got my minor. That was my focus for so long. I would say from my freshman year, like I said, that first day in ancient Egyptian art history, up until probably my junior year, I was hell-bent on studying the classics.
Okay.
I thought I was going to study everything and anything from ancient Rome, Greece, ancient Egypt, ancient Near East, all the way through like Renaissance. That was my focus. That's where I fell in love with art history and really gained like my formative knowledge. Then, of course, you make plans. God laughs. And my senior year was given a position at the Zuckerman Museum of Art because I was just trying to get out there, get involved with more museums.
The Louvre wasn't hiring.
I know, right? And yeah, like I said, like little girl who was looking at state schools, like I wasn't able to like start finding these internships in Manhattan and putting myself up. I mean, for financial and other reasons, just like I just wasn't ready for it.
Sure.
Okay, so I, in school I studied ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, ancient Rome, ancient Near East, and that was really my focus until I started working at the Zuckerman Museum of Art, and that was from my last year or so there. And when I was working at the Zuckerman, I just fell head over heels in love with working with contemporary artists. There was something that fed a part of my soul and my brain that I didn't realize I was missing with dealing with like ancient people, ancient artifacts. As delicious as that all is, and really connected me so much deeper to like a history of culture and geography, and it informed me so much about the world and its history. I felt like it gave me the platform I needed to then start working with contemporary artists, contemporary ideas, and wanting to take that a little bit more further in my practice.
Do you think some of that is because obviously there is a huge disconnect time-wise between here and ancient Egypt, but you're closer from a time perspective, so you can understand more about the concepts that they're talking about today, and it's more relatable to you and who you are today versus, you know, somebody from ancient Egypt or Roman times.
Oh, thank you, Mercy. You just like honed me in on it exactly. That's exactly it, because in my studies, I did focus a lot outside of art history on gender and women's studies, you know, social and political studies. That is my passion, and that is what I want to talk about, and I'm most excited about is contemporary things, contemporary ideas, contemporary challenges, and how does art play into all of that? So I think that is where I truly did find my love for talking with more contemporary artists and more contemporary ideas. Because I got myself into some trouble talking about ancient things, but through the lens of like modern feminism or modern queer theory or modern racial theory. And I mean, I am by no means an expert on any of those topics, but I wanted to explore these ancient ideas through that lens, and my professors and teachers would say, no, you can't quite
Can't put them in the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't judge antiquity based on modern feminism, you know? So that's where I realized, not even officially, I didn't come to a decision. It just kind of naturally happened where I was like, okay, this is the realm I work better in.
Yeah.
Where I can talk about these things, tease out these ideas, and have it not be some like ivory tower kind of like scholarly, you can't pass judgment on ancient people for blah blah blah. And like that's a whole other echelon of study that is amazing, and some people it works great for them. For me personally, it wasn't gonna work for me.
Yeah.
I needed, or if I was gonna get there, it was gonna be another 20 years of study. I wanted to get out there right now if I could, and I luckily could, and start working now. So I did. I fell in love with like the more contemporary stuff, and through my end of my academia learned, yeah, you can't make the two meet necessarily. You gotta pick one or the other, and trying to find a job nowadays, working with contemporary artists was a little bit more attainable.
Sure.
So I just threw myself into that, and honestly haven't looked at antiquity much since then.
So you brought up a good point, and this was something that I wanted to touch on as well, is what is the function of art today in terms of socio-political themes and, you know, controversial ideas. What is the purpose of art? Does it need to and or should comment on that, or should it be silent? What are your thoughts?
Art is never going to be neutral. Art is never going to be impervious from the environment in which it's created. Even if the artist thinks they're doing so, they are not. Even if the artist thinks, I am just making a pretty little painting of a little girl with a flower in her hand, there has to be something that's informing that. And so even if I don't, on my wall labels or in an artist talk, go into all of that in detail, because that's irrelevant to the usual viewer or to the artist's point. If that's not the artist's point, then I'm not going to touch on it. But always of the mindset that art is a product of the environment in which it was created. To that point, I struggle with the concept of like museums are neutral, you know, because an artist and their art having a say or having a point or speaking to something doesn't necessarily reflect the institution and what they're trying to say and what their viewpoint is. So at least in my institution, I always like to present the artist's viewpoint, present their thesis, their thoughts, and we just try to do so in a way where the museum is not necessarily saying this is the Marietta Cobb Museum of Art's official standpoint on this, or we feel this about this moment in history or about this moment occurring in the present. We think it's more the responsibility of ours to present the platform for the artists and then let them speak for themselves. So I'm not sure if that quite answers your question, but yeah, like always trying to, especially as, you know, if I was an independent curator and I was just doing independent curatorial projects, mounting with budgets that I have myself and locations I've scouted myself, that'd be completely different. Working with an institution, there is a certain responsibility to neutrality is such a mixed word. So I don't like saying to commit to like a neutrality, but to commit to just a blank slate. And then allowing the artist to make that slate what they want it to be. With the understanding that the museum, of course, we're not gonna put up certain images or words or sounds, videos, anything, you know, that could be seen as violent, offensive, denigrating, like anything to anybody. I always, it's troublesome to invoke, but I always bring up the Dana Schutz portrait of Emmett Till that I believe was at like an Art Basel a few years ago. And I think that is such, and I have no point to it, but I think it's just such a great example of how do you display certain images in a certain space as a certain artist, and how do you do it well? And I think it ultimately comes down to context. It comes down to how is this contextualized within a greater conversation? I think where that piece fell into such trouble was because it was just at a show. I like in my shows that if we are going to show anything even remotely that troublesome, problematic, grotesque, whatever, that it's at least contextualized. There's literature, there's thought, there's wall labels, there's didactic material that kind of gives a little bit more background information and context to like, why is this here? We're not just throwing it up for shock value. We're not just throwing it up because it's part of this artist's body of work. We're trying to tell a story. We're trying to communicate a certain narrative, and this fit into it. So I know that was probably like a really long way to put it, but
Well, I think too, you know, museums are meant for people of all kinds to come see the work, and you know, a lot of people believe that the purpose of art is on behalf of the viewer to make their own opinions on the art. So having a museum that is showcasing all kinds of diverse work and allowing anyone to come see it, I think it works in that way. Like it's upstanding its position in being there for anyone to experience and allowing for anyone to feel how they want to feel based on that.
yes, exactly. We're not ever trying to say this is how you should feel. This is how you should interpret. This is the artist's vision. This is what they wanted to present. These are their words. I'm happy to interpret and to tease off of what they say if they want me to. But other than that, we're just here to present. We're just here to be a part of the educational and scholarly conversation. Which I love and relinquishes me so much from the like market pressures of, will this sell? Is this going to be marketably viable or commercially viable? Like, I don't have to worry about that. Which is huge. Because when it comes to art, that's a completely different world from what is going to attract an audience, hold an audience, enrich an audience. That's what I care about. So even though it can be tricky sometimes trying to make the two meet, of having something that looks beautiful on the walls and is a just overall appealing exhibition for people to just pop in and see. But I always want something to gnaw on. And that's always, I use that all the time. I have since I started my job. I'm like, what's there for me to gnaw on? I need something to talk about. So, and it doesn't always have to come down to race or feminism or social constructs. Like, it could just be something as simple as a hurricane. You know, I've had artists who have done work based on the hurricane, based on COVID, based on, gosh, I mean, I don't know, everything. I was going to invoke Miles' show, and I was like, Miles was necessarily focused on, you know? It's more personal at that point. And at that point, if it's more personal for the artist, it's more about the artist just exploring where they started, where they are, where they're going. That's a whole realm within itself. And I love to explore that without the like, oh, well, that old piece from, 2005 probably won't sell because it doesn't fit in with the rest and just commercial stuff. I get to say, no, I'm telling a story. I'm using that as part of a greater puzzle piece to kind of inform the viewer about the art overall.
So finish this sentence for me. The best art is...
all art. I don't know. The best art is heartfelt. I mean, that's a little trite, but like, that's the first thing that comes to mind is I just want to see art that is like, or informed. That sounds bad too, though, because you kind of need all of it to come together. I don't, just heartfelt can create a beautiful piece. Is it going to be a part of a museum show or be a museum worthy piece of art. No, but that doesn't matter. You're not asking what's a museum worthy piece of art.
Right.
You're just saying art is, heartfelt. Feel it in your heart. Stand behind it. Have something to say about it. Like, and that depends on each artist. Some artists, they just are meant to paint the pretty portrait they were commissioned to paint, or make the interior design piece they were made to make. But even still, like, you have to feel it. You have to love what you're doing and feel that connection to it. At that point, the rest is semantics to me, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I could have that conversation 800 times of like, is this art? Is this valid? This is craft. No, this is art. This is design. No, it's art. It just, it varies so much. And I'd like to say I pride myself that I've kind of covered a little bit of that at the museum. I've had some design shows, craft shows, textile, wood, all of the above and beyond. And I think it's about the contextualization. It's if you work with the artist and you create a story and you thread together that narrative, you pull together a selection that does the same thing, and then you hang it in a way that does the same thing. As long as you're telling that story, that's art and that's an exhibition.
Yeah.
So, yeah, at that point, the rest of like, oh, it's not finished or it is finished or it's not, it's craft, it's not craft. That's up to the artist at that point. And it does depend. And there's a bajillion of them. So it really does come down. And that's what curators are for.
Right.
Is to kind of do that distinguishing.
Interpret.
Exactly. Of like, this is an exhibition. This is artistic merit worthy of a solo show or joint show. And then this is artwork that needs a little bit more honing, a little bit more finesse. So it does depend, but ultimately, I mean, art is what you want it to be. It really is, because we've seen literally Duchamp put a urinal on its side and said, this is art. And it made art history for 100 years now. So you just never know when an artist could be doing that now. And we may look at it and say, well, that's not art. That's just a whole bunch of... That's a banana taped to a wall.
Thank you.
But watch, that's going to be in our history textbooks, just because it's part of a greater conversation and a greater historical moment.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly went viral in art terms, whatever viral for art is.
True that. And viral at this point could start to determine what is art. I mean, gosh, the answer to your question in 10 years could be art is what gets viral.
Yeah.
Because at this point, everyone is calling everything art.
It's true.
And while that's valid, there may be
invalid.
It is. And there may be a counter reaction to that. So I know that's an open-ended question. I don't have the answer to necessarily.
Well, speaking of open-ended, there's so many more questions that I want to ask you, and we might have to end up doing a part 2 eventually. But I know we're running a little short on time. So first off, want to say thank you so much for joining us today. We are so glad to have you here and have your perspective on creativity and art. Really you're fascinating. What you do at the museum is great. So we're excited to see what is coming up. Do you have any? Go ahead and like ping your shows and talk about all the places to find you.
Promo time. Okay, so join us on September 20th on Saturday, September 20th, we have an opening from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. for Craig Drennan's Timon of Athens. This is a 17-year-long body of work that is coming to fruition with this big solo exhibition. This is one of his first times getting to bring all of his different series in this body of work together into one show. So that opens on September 20th, will be open through December 14th. And then I also brought up Ahmad Hassan Taylor's show, which is called History Lessons, and it is a contemporary portraiture show. And it will also be open on September 20th, but his opening reception is going to be the following day on Sunday, September 21st, from 1 to 3 p.m. And we will have a little gathering for both of the artists to celebrate their openings. Both have artist talks coming up. Craig's is going to be on November 1st. Craig's is going to be on November 1st, and Ahmad's will be on December 14th.
Great.
I think that's it.
You got Chalktoberfest too?
I do have Chalktoberfest. Oh gosh, yeah, how could I forget? I know. Oh my gosh, Sally would be so mad. Yes, and we have Chalktoberfest on the square coming up. Every second week of October, the Marietta Cobb Museum of Art presents Chalktoberfest on Marietta Square. Chalktoberfest is the museum's massive fundraiser every year. It is solely hosted and presented by our small team of museum workers plus hundreds of volunteers, and it is the biggest fundraiser for the museum. It's what enables us to keep our doors open, keep exhibitions coming in and out of the museum, and just enables us to keep offering shows, programming, education, events to the community. So we'll be here October 11th and 12th for Chalktoberfest, and then the exhibitions will be open at the museum through December 14th.
Awesome. Chalktoberfest is always a highlight here on the square. Awesome. If you
It's a lot of fun.
haven't been, you need to take a trip out there for sure.
Yep.
Well, Maddie, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We are so excited to see what comes from your career moving forward. And we like to end every session, every episode with just a quick rapid fire questions. So if you're game, then we'd love to shoot a couple questions your way.
Let's do it.
All right. What is the place where you feel most inspired?
The museum.
Nice. You're in the right line of work.
I was going to say, I'm just going to keep it rapid. I'm not going to think about it too hard.
If you were a hero or a villain, what would your superpower be?
Hero.
What's your superpower?
Superpower. Being in more than one place at once.
That's a good one.
I could be at the museum while I'm right here, right now. That would be amazing.
That would be a really useful one, actually. Would you rather travel to the past or the future?
Past.
I was going to say classics girl.
Yeah, past.
What's one item that's still on your bucket list?
I want to go to all 7 continents. I've yet to even check off one, but we're working towards it. We're making bucket lists now, so
That's awesome.
I'm getting there one day.
Sweet or salty?
Salty.
Would you rather live the rest of your life in total sunlight or total darkness?
I'm a dark girl, but I freak out at night. So daytime all day long. Yep. Yep.
And finally, can you impersonate any famous person or character?
Oh gosh, probably too many, but no one I would be comfortable just pulling out of the top of my head or on camera. No
Maybe
one.
for chapter 2.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm like, well, I know I have some good ones, but like no one that I could just confidently pull out without offending someone. Without totally botching it. I know. I wish I could be a little bit more cutesy with that one, but no.
That is okay. Well, thank you so much for playing along and for telling us your story today. And thank you all for joining us today as we were inspired by Madeline Beck. If you like what you hear, please click that like and subscribe button. And if you want to see more from our team, you can follow us on Instagram at Clementine Creative Agency. And we look forward to sharing our next episode with you. In the meantime, we hope you find lots of reasons to be inspired.